So in today's class, we'll be talking about function. So I think in our last class, we stopped at how to do iterations in JavaScript. So in today's class, we'll be taking this class a little bit further and we will try to look into function in JavaScript. So, and at least by now, if you remember, we've looked into like different data type in JavaScript. We've talked about numbers, talks about string, talk about Boolean, talks about different type of data type in JavaScript, and also we talk about reference data type like arrays, data type like objects, and we've seen different ways of how we can work with these type of data type in JavaScript. So, and another thing that is very, very important in JavaScript is something called function. Though we've seen function a lot in this class, the only thing is we are not that aware, like we've been working with functions. So in today we will try to like unwrap what functions is or what functions are in JavaScript and see how we can like what function is, how to declare functions, how we can use functions, and so that's what we are going to be doing today's class anyway. So let's start. So and first thing first is what is a function in JavaScript? And so function is more like like as you can see on the screen, is more like a repeatable process of procedure or set of reusable codes statement that performs a task or calculate a value. So I know this might be a little bit abstract. So I try to like get this picture to explain what function is. So I'm going to a little bit zoom out so we can now see the picture. As you can see on the screen, this is more or less like a coffee brewing machine, right? And this is a coffee machine. And as you can see, this is I think they call it maybe coffee grounds or coffee powder. Sorry if I'm not right. I really don't drink coffee. And also you can see water here as well. And these are the couple of things that goes together for you to have your hot coffee. So, but it doesn't work that way. Remember, we have these two things, which is the water and the coffee, that goes into this machine, and these machines perform some operations on the water and the coffee grounds, and the output we are going to get in the long run is we are going to get like a very hot, either black coffee in this jar, right? And as you will agree with me, if you are trying to make this coffee, one of the things we do is we pass these coffee grounds to this machine, right? And as you can see, we put these I don't know if they call it bag or filter or paper. We put it inside the coffee machine, and we pass these coffee grounds into the coffee machine. And once we pass it there, we add this water to it. So this water and this coffee grounds are more or less like the inputs that goes into this coffee machine. And once you put that into the machine, you won't just get a coffee straight out of it, but you also have to press like a button. For example, the water and the hot water and the coffee goes into this machine. Sometimes it might not be hot water, sometimes it might be hot water. So let me control. So this water goes into this coffee brewing machine. Also, the coffee grounds goes into it. So these two things, they are the inputs we pass to this coffee machine, right? And this won't just brew coffee for us. We have to like press a button there that is going to tell the machine, okay, now you can start brewing the coffee. And once you press that button, then it's going to start. Then you start seeing coffee dropping into this either you call it jar or you call it coffee kettle or coffee bottle or whatever. Then you start see that coffee dropping into this jar. And when that happens, the output you are going to get is what? A hot coffee. So what does this has to do with function? So, and what does this have to do with function is function worked exactly the same way like how this coffee works. So for example, function takes, sometimes it takes an input and sometimes it doesn't take an input, depending on the type of function you're trying to, depending on what you're trying to do. We see a couple of examples down. So remember, function takes input or it doesn't take input, depending on what you're trying to do. And for that function to, for this coffee machine to brew this coffee, you have to press a button on that machine. And that button you are trying to press, consider it to be like what? A function. And the output you are going to get from it, from you performing an operation on that input you pass to it, sometimes you get an output and sometimes you don't get an output, depending on what you're trying to do. But in the instance of this coffee machine, you are going to get an output. And this instance, this button does the work of function there. It's more or less like function is just trying to let you perform an action on something. I don't know if anyone has any questions so far. Any question? Should I proceed? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can proceed, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, so like I mentioned, function is just for us, is like a set of codes that help us to perform like an operation or an action. So, and how does function work? Like we've seen function a lot. I think someone's mic is on, like there's a background noise coming from someone. Yeah, thanks. So let's try to see how function works, like how function works in JavaScript and how we can use it. So the first thing we are going to talk about is how do we write functions in JavaScript? So for example, like, for everything we do in JavaScript, we always have a syntax of how to go about them, right? And like I mentioned, so like for us to write a function, first thing that comes first is, I think I put, so first thing that comes first is you have a keyword called function, and we give that function a name, and the camel case also works here. I'm going to show you how we do that here. And so these are just the set of rules to create a function. So the first thing is we always have a function name, which is starts with small letter F. We have the function keyword, and the next thing is the name we want to give our function. And like I mentioned, camel case also works in this instance. So like on what does camel case means, we've talked about it before. It means the first letter starts with what? A small letter, and the rest of other words you want to use there is going to be start with capital letter. And you have these brackets, and this bracket, I'm coming back to it also. And if we want to pass like inputs to this function, those inputs goes here. And so inside our function, then we have a function body. And we've seen this a lot, even when we are working with loops, right? Like for, they also have their own words, their body. So function also has its own body, and what goes inside of the function body is whatever you want to do. And one thing that makes functions so unique is functions, though it's not a must that function has to return an output. Also, it takes a return keyword. A return, the return there is a keyword. A return keyword which help us to return output of our operation. I know this might seem a little bit abstract at the moment. We are going to look at an example and see how this works. So, but things you need to mind is, and the last thing that comes with the function is you have to do a what we call this calling the function. So, and looking at this, the first thing I mentioned is it has a function keyword. This is the function keyword. And the second thing is the name of the function, name you want to call the function. So we want to call this function what? Function name. And it also has a bracket, and that bracket always takes the inputs we want to pass it to the function. And we have a function body. The operation wants to perform inside of that function goes here, and function takes a return keyword. And though it depends on if you are returning an output from the function. So I'm coming back to this scenario of this coffee. As you can see, the inputs that goes into this coffee are what? The water and the coffee grounds, right? And the output that is going to come out of this coffee machine is what? The hot coffee we want. And the operation we are trying to perform is what? We are trying to brew a coffee. And that function button there is depending on the type of operation we are trying to perform. It could be different operation, but in this instance is what? A brew button, which is we are trying to perform an action of brewing, like brewing a coffee. That's the action there. And that's why we call it a brew button. I don't know if that makes sense enough. So now, trying to see an example now is, and the last thing that comes is, our function won't do anything if we did not call it. And I'm going to explain what calls also mean. So for example now, let's look at these different examples. We're going to look at these 5 examples if time permits anyway. So the first thing is at least I'm going to open my let me copy this. So let me copy all these. So maybe we don't really have to come back. So I'm going to open my node VS Code right now. You can see my screen, right? Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Desktop function dot js. So I'm trying to create a file using my VS Code. And what we are trying to do is, and I call that file a JavaScript file. I call it function.js, right? And the .js means it's a JavaScript file. So let's take all these example one at a time and see, just to understand how function works. I'm trying to comment them out. So the first thing is, we are asked to write a function to console welcome, to console welcome. So for example, as I mentioned, function takes was, we have a function keyword, right? And it says the next thing is the name of the function, and the third thing is plus name of the function plus the brackets, and with the inputs if there is an input. If there is an input, and the third thing is the function body, and then the return, okay, plus this should be function body plus return keyword, and the last thing is we call our function. So let's take this now. So remember, the first thing is they want us to do what? To write a function that console welcome to the terminal, right? So the terminal. And you remember, if you want to console something to the terminal, we always do it this way, right? Console.log, then we do whatever we want to console. But this one says we should console welcome. So if I save this code and if I run it, let's say, so first thing is I need to go to where I save this file, which is on my desktop. So if I run this code, and how can I run this code? If I press this button at this top corner, if I should run this code, we should be able to see welcome on our terminal. Can you see this, right? Can you see welcome?
Yes. Yes.
So, and
Yes, can say welcome.
okay, so but what they want us to do is they want us to use function to write it. So the first thing is going to be, you remember we said we have the function keyword, right? And so we are going to write the function keyword, the function, then it says we should give it a function name. And the name is more like you're trying to give a variable name to your code. So what are we trying to do here? We can call it a what? Console. And remember I said it's a camel case, so we can call it console function. So let me see, console func. And my function there is just telling me like this is a function. Then the next thing is going to be what? I'm going to write the brackets, the two brackets. Then the next thing is the function body. And what they want us to do is what? They want us to console.log welcome to the terminal, right? And it says the last thing is, okay, so one thing here is the last thing is we have to call the what? The function. And how do we call the function? You write the function name, which is func, then you put the bracket there. So, and if we should run this, we should also see that console. We should also say welcome in our terminal. Can you see the second welcome now? So one
Yes.
one thing we can try is, what will happen if we did not call the function? So this last piece, this code on line 17 is more or less doing a what? A function call. So, and what happened here is if we did not call this function, let's see what is going to happen. I'm going to run this again. You can see we are not getting anything in our terminal, right? These two welcome are those that are there before. Now I'm not getting anything. I'm supposed to see welcome here, but welcome is not happening. So how does function work how does it work? So for example, now, remember we write this function, we have this console function, if this function name, and inside of it, we are trying to perform this operation. So for example, if you try to look at this code visually, so our code is going to start from, and I mentioned this in our last class, like codes always run from top to bottom and from left to right. So first thing is the code is going to start from line 1. It can't see anything to like until line 13. So when it gets to this line 13, it's going to see, okay, this is a function, and it's going to, okay, this is the function name. Then it's going to, okay, is there anything you want me to do? Then it's going to go inside, because we are not doing anything here, right? Then it's going to go inside of line 14. So once it enters line 14, then it's going to say, okay, what do they want me to do? Do you want me to console.log welcome to terminal, right? And it's going to, one question might be, how come this did not console.log to the terminal when we don't have this there? So, which is what I'm trying to explain now. So if it's going to go inside of this, and it's going, okay, they want me to console.log this to terminal, right? And quietly by itself, it's going to perform this operation, and it's going to save this welcome. So, okay, I'm going to explain this. I'm going to go back to the note and use the note to explain proper. And like, I'm going to relate it to how it works with the memory also. So it's going to do this, and what it's going to do is it's going to get this console.log, but it's not going to print it to the terminal yet. Then it's going to go out, and it's going to, okay, is there anything else they want me to do? Nothing. Until it gets to like line 18. So when it gets to line 18, it's going to, okay, now they are calling this function. And once they call this function, it's going to, okay, do I have a value for performing this operation? If I have a value for it, then I'm going to do that values to the terminal. I'm going to like return that values to them. And that's what this thing is. I know it might not be a little bit make sense now. So, but let's look at this code, explaining it with our memory. So for example, I'm going to go back a little. I'm going to put this code here. You can still see my screen, right? No way, Control Z. Should be then. So this is the code now. So, and to explain this with the memory, so as you know before, we always have this is our table. Let's say we have this memory, we have this, we always call it cell or slot or whatever, or memory. Then these are, we call these the placeholder or the variable name, right? So, and so once we start this operation on this code, it's going to come, okay, function is going to enter this body, and this function, remember, this is more like a variable name also, just like we are calling it function name. And for this variable name, this is a function name, but it's more like also a variable. It's more like a variable name. It's a function name. So what is going to happen is this code is going to evaluate, it's going to the operation we are trying to do is to do what? To print this to the terminal, right? To the console. So when this code runs, it's going to come here and it's going to create, when it starts running, it's going to create a variable name. It's going to create a variable name and put that variable name here. And once this code runs up to this instance, and you know that the output you are expecting is what? A string. This is supposed to print a string of welcome to the terminal, right? So it's going to assume like the output from running this code is what? From running this code is welcome, and it's going to save it to memory. And the only way we can get this output out of the memory is when we call that variable name. And the only way we can call that variable name is we call the name of the variable, and we also attach these two brackets to it. Once we do that, once we call the name of the variable and we attach that to two brackets to it or parentheses, then it's going to do what? It's going to perform that operation that we want from it. And the operation we need from it is what? Is to print welcome to terminal. Let's look at this example again. Let's say we have a variable name called student one name, and we save student one name we set it to be comfort, right? Let's say I declare let student one name equals to comfort. And so as you know that this is going to work like this, how this works is this is going to go to the memory and save that value to be what? Of comfort. And remember, the only way we can get that value out of memory is if we call what? Student one name. And it's going to do what? It's going to give us back what? Comfort. Do you understand this, at least this part? Hello?
Yes, please.
So if you understand this part, this same procedure also worked for this function. The only way we can get whatever we store as the output of this function from the memory is if you call the name of that function. And if you call the name of that function alone, it's not going to it's not going to give us anything. Not until if we attach those two brackets to it. I don't know, do you understand? At least do you understand why we have to call this? Why we have to put this there now?
Yeah. If we don't put it, it will not work.
It's not going to get the output from memory false. So now let's take and now I believe we know how to at least declare a variable, how to write variable syntax, right? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello,
Can you?
Dami, yeah, we are here.
Okay. So the question I'm asking is, at least now you know how to write functions in JavaScript, right?
Yes,
Okay,
from what you explained.
so one thing we can also look at is, so function is just more or less a way like how we can bundle our code together and put it inside of something so that if we need it later on, we can just call that something and do whatever we need to do. So let's look at this example now. And you remember we've been citing this example of students, a school and students at that school. Let's assume like our class 1, right? Let's assume a new student joined class 1 today. And so instead of us, like if a new student should join, so the tradition of the class is if a new student should join, so all of the students, they will stand up and welcome the student, welcome with the name of the student. Like they will say, okay, let's say a new student called Dami join the class now. So the tradition of the class is for the first day of that student, when that student comes to the class, the student will stand up and they will say, okay, welcome Dami to class 1, right? So one thing that is going to be unique every time a new student joins is going to be the name of that student. Welcome to class 1 is going to be the same, right? So let's take a look at an example that is, I'm not going to take this for now. So I'm going to change this a little bit. Like we should write a function that is going to welcome a new student to class 1. So now let's go back to our VS Code now. So the task here is to write a function that welcomes a new student to class 1. So now, for example, first thing we need to know is in this instance, we didn't pass any input to it. So first thing we need to ask is, what is the name of the new student, right? And what's the name of the new student? So we can call the student what? Yeah, new student. So you can give that new student what? Dummy, right?
Yes.
And now to welcome dummy to this class, so we can now write a function. We know how to write a function. It starts with the function keyword, and then the name we want to give the function. So let's call this what? Welcome function. And you remember we said we are going to pass this parentheses there, and we are going to open the body of that function. And whatever we want to do is going to go inside of that body function. And in the long run, we always have a return, but it's always good there's a return, but not in all cases that we have to have a return, depending on what we are trying to do. In this instance, they want us to welcome student 1, right? So let's maybe take it one step at a time. So first thing is, what they want us to do? They want us to welcome students. How can we welcome students? Can we just use like a console.log to welcome that student, right? We can use a console.log to welcome that student, right?
Yes.
So it's going to be console.log, and we are going to write, because welcome is going to be a string, and we know welcome is a string, right?
Yes.
And we know the name of that student we are also passing is going to be what? A string.
Dummy.
And
A string.
remember I said functions sometimes take input and sometimes doesn't take input. But in
Yeah.
this instance, we need to pass this input of dummy. We need to pass that input of new student to this function. And how can we pass that input to that student? We just have to take the input we want to pass and put it inside of this bracket. Remember, we declare that input outside of the function, and we pass that function, the name of that input, which is new student. We put it in between. We put it in between. I'm trying to resize my VS Code. So we put it in between that function bracket, and how can we add two string together?
Concatenation.
Exactly. So then we can concat it with what? The input you are trying to pass. And we know that that input is a what?
String.
So which means you can easily just concat, and we can put that here. So and so if we should run this code, and you notice also we are not doing what? We are not passing the return keyword there. So if we should run this code, let me comment this first part out. So if we should run this code, what do you think is going to happen? Should I run it, or you want to guess what is going to happen?
Yeah, I think it will return to us welcome new student.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. You can see we are not getting anything. Those are the welcomes we've printed before. What do you think is the problem why we are not getting anything? Anyone wants to guess? You remember when I explained this how memory works with function also? So now we declare that function, and the operation we are trying to perform has like executed itself and installs the output in what? In the memory. So in this instance is going to be what? Welcome plus new students, right? And we know, okay, let me pass this, let me do some separation of concern. Let me put this here, and we said our new students equals of dummy, right? And we call this welcome function, right? So looking at this code, we declare a variable called new students and we save the value of it in the memory, right? And we wrote a function to welcome that new students, right?
Yes.
And this thing is going to look okay. I have welcome defined, and it's going to look, do I have new student defined? It's going to look at itself. It's going to look at the memory. Yes, I have new student defined, which is what? Dummy. And it's going to take new student, it's going to add it, it's going to replace it with what? It's going to replace it with dummy, right? And now we've computed this function. Then how can we get this output from the memory? How can we get this? What is stored in the memory? How can we get it out for this function? Hello. You remember when I said for us to get the name comfort out of the memory? Remember I said you have to do what? Hello.
What was the question again?
So the question is, so the problem we are facing here is when we run the code, we are not getting anything out of the code, right?
Okay.
And I was now taking us back to like this function has computed itself. And by now, by default, it stores welcome plus new student in the memory. Then how can we now get the output of these functions out of the memory? That's the question. Then I was now trying to like re-explain of how I explain it here. Like we declare the function, this function is going to perform whatever we want it to perform and store that result in the memory. And the only way we can get the result out of the memory is what? To call the what? The function name, right?
Okay.
And here in this instance also, then now I'm trying to explain how this thing is going to work also. We declare a function to do welcome new students. And our new student is what? This is what we have in the function body, right? Console.log this. And this is going to look into the memory. It's going to look, do you have this in the memory? Yes, we have this in the memory. And it's what? Dummy. And it's going to concat dummy to this. Now this function has computed itself now. Now, how can we get this value out of the memory? So that's the question. How can we get this value out of the memory?
No.
So to get it out of the memory, we just have to do what? Call that variable name. And the variable name or the function name here is what?
Is it welcome?
It's welcome function. So if you look at this code also, we said we write a function called what? The function keyword. And we have a what? A function name. And that function name is going to perform operation that is within itself, within its body. And when this is done, we can only get the output of this function body if and only if we do what? We call the name of the function. So to get the output now, we just have to call the name of the function. And okay, so we have to call the name of the function and also pass. I know this part might be a little bit complicated now. So this is going to be like so, and we also have to pass that. Remember, we pass a parameter, we pass an input to that function here, right? And anytime we are trying to call that function also, we also have to pass that input to it as an argument. I know this might be a little bit not straightforward, but the main thing is numbers of inputs, no matter the numbers of inputs or variables you are passing to that function when you are declaring it, you also have to do what? Pass that same input to that function when you are calling it. So now if we should run our code, we are supposed to see what now? Hello?
I can hear you.
Do you even understand what I'm talking about?
As in, this one is giving me a headache. I'm sorry. Maybe, I don't know, maybe because I didn't start from the beginning, I don't know.
Even if it did not start, I think I've gone back and explained this over and over and over and
It's
over.
kind of like the way the way you are kind of like linking the example is kind of, I don't know. I'm not
Okay,
getting the,
so let's do it this way again. But do you understand how to at least how to declare functions, right?
yeah, I should be able to do
We always have the function keyword,
that.
then the
Yeah,
function name,
okay.
the
Yeah,
brackets, and the function body, and the whatever. You remember when we did for loop, right? When we did for loop. If you remember,
on,
loop is also quite similar to this syntax. We have the for, we have the bracket, right? And we
okay.
have the body of the for loop.
Yeah,
And whatever we want to do always go inside of the body, right?
yeah.
And the same thing goes for this one also. Whatever it wants to do go inside the body of the function. And in this instance, we are trying to pass something. We are trying to pass a variable to that function. So let's hold on this example and let me see, and let's work. I think we've done something like this. So let's try take this new example, and maybe this is going to like help us understand it much better now. So this example is asking us to do what? To write a function to do the sum of two numbers. Let's say, for example, if you want to do sum of two numbers, we know what sum of two numbers means is we should add two numbers to each other. It could be 3 plus 4, and we know this is going to give us what? 7.
But the number is not given, right? We're
Yeah, it's
just
not giving. We
assuming.
can assume the number ourselves.
Okay.
So this is going to give us 7. So what
Yeah,
are we going to do if we want to do this by default if we are not using function? First thing we have to do is what? We have to declare num1, right?
yes,
And we assign it a value, right?
yeah.
Do you want to get any value we should give it? Any number?
Yeah, you can put 3.
3. Then we are going to write let num2, right?
Yeah, 4.
And give 12 exactly. And if you should do if we should do so we can see it, we have to, let's do console.log. And if you do num1 plus num2, what are we supposed to expect? 15, right?
Yeah,
So if I should my console is not correct. So if I should log this, we are expecting 16, 15, sorry. We can see 15 here,
yeah.
right? So this is by default of how to do this. Let's now say, now they want us to now use a function to perform this, so that we are going to see another use case of why function is very important now. So now they want us to use function to do this. So remember how do we write a function? We do what? We write a function keyword, right?
Yeah,
And we give it a function name, which is what we can call it sum, because that's the action we are trying to perform, right?
yes.
And we do what? We open the bracket, and we can have the function body. And what do we want to do? So first thing is we can declare that num1 or so inside of that function body and give it what? 3. And also do let num2 and give it what? 12, right? And in the long run, we can do console.log num1 plus what? Num2. So let's try to console this out. So now if we should run this code, we are supposed to get 15, right? So yeah, the reason why we are not getting anything is we have to do what? We also have to call that function name. We have to call it so we can get the output from it. And that's the reason why I was explaining that memory aspect. Like anytime we create a function also, that the output of computing this is going to save in the memory. And the only way we can get the output out from the memory is we have to call that function name and attach that bracket to it.
Okay. You mean the function sum? It will
Exactly.
be inside the bracket.
Sorry?
As in the function name will be inside this bracket.
No, it's going to be, if you want to call it, it's going to be, you mean, which of the bracket do you mean? Do you mean this bracket on line 46? or the one on line 48?
I was thinking the one of 42.
So if you want to call a function, it has to be outside of the function body.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this way, whatever the output of computing this is, this is going to is a function body, and it's going to save that output to the memory as this variable name, as this function name. So that anytime we want to get that output from that memory, we just have to call that memory variable name, which is the function name. Then it's going to return whatever is being saved in that memory for us. So if I run this now, we're supposed to do what? We're supposed to get let's we are not getting 15. Let me see what is going wrong. Okay, so let me try return. Yeah. Something is all right. Okay, let me try something. Num1, num2, and save. Okay, so let's try to debug this code. Console.log line 43 and console.log line 45 and console.log line 47 and console.log line 49. So if we should run these, yeah, we're not supposed to at least get these. Console.log line said reference E is not defined. E is not an object. So I think the reason why, don't worry about this anyway. So let's see. Yeah, so line 43 is working. So line 45 is working. We can see line 43 is printed to the console. 45 is printed to the console. 47 printed to the console. So which means this works. Yeah, okay, so we can do it this way again. Let's say num1, and let's do num2, and let's see what we are going to get now. Okay, so num3 printed, num2 also printed. Then how come this is not being computed? Okay, let's say some number and some number. That shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, 3, 12. Then let's see. Console.log, yeah. Console.log. Then yeah, num2, num1, then num2 equals 12. Then function. Okay. I don't think I understand why it's not working. Okay, so let me go to the terminal and do node function dot js. Yeah, I still don't think I understand why it's not working. Okay, so another thing we can try is instead of putting this variable inside. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So let's see, let's try something. I'm suspecting so let's do yes, okay, we can comment this. So let's do num1 plus num2. So what we're going to get. Yeah. So we get 15 now.
Yeah, no, okay.
So I think the problem has to do with a topic called, though we are not going to touch it right now. I think it has to do with a topic called scope and closure. So it's like a little bit advanced topic with JavaScript anyway. So let's see. But the main thing here is a better way to write this code is once we declare this, I think the problem is because I declared this inside of it. I think that was the reason why it was giving me the issue. But I think it has to do with maybe closure and concept called scope. So another way to go about this is we can write this function just to make it looks better. And if you remember in this instance, let's call this some num. Let's call this 2. And let's open our body. So another way to write this code is instead of taking this number and bringing it directly to this function, we can actually write it here and call this number, and call this, let's say, number 1, and call this number 2, right? And inside of this, we can now do console.log number 1, number 2, and so if we do this and pass num1, I'm going to explain this, and num2, we should get 15. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is this code we just wrote here is more or less the same as this.
Okay.
So the main difference there is we declare our variable outside of this, right?
Yeah.
And this variable, what they means is they are more like they are global variables, which means a lot of function can access them. You can see this is one function, right?
Okay.
And this is another function. We call this sum num2, and we call this function sum num, right?
Okay.
It means, and if you notice, we use these two variables for these two functions, right?
Yeah.
Though I'm still coming back to why I have to give this number 1 and not num1 and num2. And in this function, I didn't pass those two variables to this in between this, right? And remember I said the input you want to pass to our function always comes in between this bracket of the function name. And in this case, I'm not putting it in between. So I only pass it directly inside of the body.
Okay.
And the reason why that works is function, they are more like they call them first class citizen. And the reason is they have this liberty of seeing something with outside themselves. And how does this work is, and I think that's the reason why we are running into the first problem is, how does this work is, so when this code runs on line 43, it's going to enter the body of this function, some num function, and it's going to come to line 47, and it's going to ask like, okay, they asked me to do what? Do the sum of num1 and num2. Then it's going to ask itself, do I have num1 declared in myself? And it's going to be like, no, I don't have num1 because there's no num1 inside of it, right? And remember when we did num1 inside of it the other time, we are not getting the desired output. It was nothing. But it's going to look within itself like, I don't have num1 declared within myself. Then it's going to go outside like, do I have num1 declared outside of myself, outside of the function? Then it's going to go outside, yes. it's going to go to line 37. Like I have num1 declare at line 37. Then it's going to get the value of line num1, which is 3. It's going to replace this num1 with 3. Also, num2 is going to ask itself. Function is going to ask itself, do I have num2 declared within myself? It's going to be no. And if that doesn't happen, it can go outside itself. That's why function is a first-class citizen. They can take something outside of themselves. Then this is going to go outside and it's going to say, okay, I have num2 declared outside myself, and the value is what? 12. It's going to replace itself with 12. And then it's going to do what? Compute what? 3 plus 12, which is going to be 15. And that's why we are getting 15 out in this code. So for the second aspect, for this aspect, we declare this function called sumNum2. And in this instance, we are passing it what? The two inputs. And it is not the same, it's not the same as what? Num1. Like it's this one is number 1 and this one is number 2. And what this is trying to tell us is, so when we are passing an input to a function, you really don't have to call it exact name of the input you are trying to pass to it.
Okay.
So this one are more or less like a placeholder that it's more or less like a placeholder telling this thing like, oh, hold on, I'm going to pass something to you, but just give it like just give it like a fake name at this moment. Like give it a name, but just know that I'm going to pass something to you later on. And whatever I'm passing to you, then it's going to go inside of itself and it's going to do like, okay, now we want to do what? We want to do the sum of these two things we are passing to it. And it's going to tell itself like, whatever I'm passing to you, use them to perform the operation you want to perform. And the operation you want to perform here is what? Addition, right? And now, if you now call that function, and if you call that function, then it's going to now we are now passing the read value we want to pass to it, which is what? This value of num1 and num2. Then this value of num1 is going to replace whatever we pass here, which is going to be 3, and this is going to be 12. And we're going to pass that 3 and 12 here. Do you understand it now? Why I didn't use? So in most instances, if you are passing that input to that function, you really don't have to use the exact name you are calling that input. You can just give it like.
Sorry, I have a question.
Okay, so you can just.
Okay, for example, now, like
Okay.
like those numbers that we declare, that's 3 and 12. Assuming those numbers are more than 2, maybe we have another additional number here, like let num1 be 3, let num2 be 12, and we have another one, and
So
we are only.
So like this, right?
Yeah.
5. So what you just have to do here also is let this
No,
function.
no, I know, but my question is, assuming the question said we should add the two. Is there any possible that we declare everything there and we can work within 2 numbers there without picking the third one?
So I don't think I understand the question.
For example, now we have like, for example, now we have like 3 numbers here now, and we are asked to add. We are asked to work on number 1 and number 2.
Okay.
Num1 and num2. Is it possible to run it?
For num1 and num2, right?
Yeah. And this num3 will be there.
You mean we still have to pass num3 here, right?
No, assuming we are not going. Assuming num3 is not included in this particular question, but maybe it will be in another question.
Yeah, we can do it this way. You mean declare this num3 like this and not use it in this question, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that. So let's say, and the reason why this function is so good is, thank you for asking that question now. Remember, now we have these 3 variables, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, you are trying to build a multiplication table, which I think by now we should be able to do if we've been practicing what we've been learning. So, for example, they asked us to do a multiplication table of 1 to 10, right? I remember multiplication table says 1 times 1, 2, 1 times 1, 1, 1, 2 times, or 1 times 2, 2, 1 times 3, 3, like that, right? Then we go to 2, is going to be 2 times 1, 2, 2 times 2, 4, like that, right? So let's look at it from this instance. what is this function asking us to do? This function has to do what? Now let's try to change this function name to sum of two number, right?
Okay.
So what this function is trying to do is to do what? Sum of two numbers, right?
Yeah.
In this first instance, we are passing, in this first instance, remember we said it's going to do sum of two numbers, and we are passing two inputs to it. We said it's going to be number 1 and it's going to be number 2, right?
Yes.
And we want that function to do the sum of number 1 we are passing to it and the sum of the other number we are passing to it, right? And now to make this function do the sum, so now we can call the function now and pass that number we want to do the sum to it. Let's say, for example, in your question now we want to do the sum of another number, and now we are passing what? num3 to this.
Okay. Yeah.
So now if you run this code, for the first one, we are supposed to get what? 15, right?
Yes.
And for the second one, we are supposed to get 3 plus 5, 8, right?
Okay.
So let's run this code now. So for the first one, what again? Yeah, I think something is wrong with my VS Code today. Or okay, maybe I didn't save. Yeah, if I press this, it's supposed to save. Yeah, I didn't save in the first instance. That's the reason why we are not getting that 8. So if you look at this now, we are getting for the first one, we are getting what?
Yeah.
15, right?
Yeah.
And for this, we are supposed to get 8.
Yes.
And it was 8. Now, with your question, you should be able to see the big picture of why we use function. So function help us to do repeated tasks over and over again. For example, let's say we don't have a function now. Coming back to our explanation we did up somewhere, where again? Yeah, coming back to the explanation we did there. Let's say we want to do, remember what we did at first was, we are trying to do sum of two numbers, right?
Yes.
And that instance, we want to do sum of num1 and num2. You know, this is going to be 15. And now we want to do sum of num3 and num1. You know, this is going to be 8, right? Right?
Yes.
And only what we have to do is we have to copy the first code all over again and do that same code all over again, right? And come to think of it, let's say we want to do multiplication of 1 times 1 to 10, 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 2, like that to 10. Do we have to copy this? Let's say this is now 10, right? Now it's multiplication now. Okay, maybe we can rewrite this code now. Let's write this code, and instead of doing sum now, let's say we want to do a function that does what? Multiply. I'm going to comment this out. And it's going to be product of, instead of sum now, it's going to be product of two number. You remember we still pass the same num1, num2 to it. Instead of plus now, what do we do now? We change it to sign, but times, right?
Fine, sorry. Yeah.
And if we do this, and remember we always have to call our function, right?
Yes.
For it to work, for us to see the output. If we call this and if we pass, then we have to pass the input we want to pass to it, which is going to be num1 and num3 in this instance.
Yeah.
And this should give us what? 15. Because 3 times 5 is 15. Yeah. So let's run this now. I didn't save again. That's the reason I'm not getting that output again. So if I save again. So you can see now we have what? 15, right? And think of it again. Let's say we want to do multiplication table. If we want to do a multiplication table now, instead of okay, let's even forget about multiplication table now. Maybe we can do multiplication table before we go. Let's say, for example, now, if we want to, we just want to change, let's say we just want to build a simple calculator for a shop owner that adds, let's say someone has a shop now, and anytime they come to that person's shop, they always buy two things. And in this instance, if anytime they come to that person's shop, they always buy two things. If they buy product A and they buy product B, and if that person wants to tell that, if that shop owner wants to tell people that are buying something the amount they have to pay, is going to add the price of product A to the price of product B, right? And that's going to give them the total price that whoever is buying something is going to pay, right?
Yeah.
So for example, now coming back to Coming back to this first instance now, let's say you go to shop one now, you buy a product that is what? 20, you have to pay 20 naira, right, for the product one. And for product two, you have to pay 30 naira for the product two, right? Now I'm passing the value of that thing to it. I'm passing the value of these two, product one, product two to it. Now, if I run this code now, this function is supposed to add the cost of product one to the cost of product two, right?
Yes.
So, and if I should run this is going to give us what? Did I save again? Okay, what again? Sum of num2. Yeah, this should work. Okay, maybe I don't know. Let me see. It's telling me a problem. Dummy unknown word. Where do we have dummy unknown? Okay, I don't know. So I think something is wrong with my VS Code anyway. So, but the problem there is it's, so let's do it this way. Let's say let product one, right, equals to 20. I still don't know why this won't do that. So let product two equals to 30. So then I can now pass product one and product two. So if I should run this code now, we are supposed to get 15. Yeah. So I think something is wrong with my VS Code. I don't know why it can't allow me to pass numbers directly to this. Something is wrong with it anyway. So you can see 50 on my terminal, right?
Yes.
So this could be a simple calculator that helps a shop owner to do what? To calculate the cost of purchase in his or her shop, right? So anytime someone comes to that shop, the owner doesn't have to take a pen and paper to now add it together. So you just have to pass the cost of the product one the new customer is buying, plus the cost of the product two the new customer is buying. And this calculator is going to do what? Compute it and tell the owner the amount that person has to pay. So which means for the whole life of that shop, the owner can use this over and over and over again. Do you see how function comes in now? So it's able to perform repeated actions. So you don't have to write the code all over again. You just have to pass whatever the input to it, and it's just going to complete that action for you over and over and over again. Do you understand? Do you see the use case of a function now?
Yeah.
So now let's take an example of, I think maybe I'm going to try one example in
What you are trying to say now concerning the function? You mean like this let prod one equal to 20? When it comes to function, we don't need to go to that area. We can just use this function product of two num directly. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like let's say another person comes to the shop now. They bought something worth 90 US. They bought something worth 90 naira, right? Another person comes to the shop. They bought something worth 100. So in this instance, I don't have to go to my function again to edit this code. The only thing is, whenever this function calls happen, but then what is going to happen? It's just going to look at wherever we put, when you take a calculator, the only thing you have to put there is you have to put the figures there, right? And press equals.
Yes.
So behind your calculator, how your calculator works is there are some function underneath that is also doing this function for you, performing this action for you. That's a simple way of how your calculator also works. Equals has its own function, multiplication has its own function, plus they have their own different function behind the wood. So once you press equals, that is just going to compute it and give you the result. This is exactly just how the calculator works also. So now, remember a new customer comes to the shop now. I just need to know the amount of what they bought for product one. Also know the amount of what they bought for product two. And once I just put it here, not now that I'm not editing anything here. I'm not editing anything here, right? This is the only thing I just edited. So if I press this now, you can see our output should be what now? Not again. You can see the output is what now?
It's 190.
Also, if another customer comes and they bought something worth, now this is going to be a very huge something for me to compute, right?
Yeah, okay.
I can compute this with my head, but because I already wrote the function down, you notice I'm not editing this line 61 and I'm not editing line 54 to 56. All what I just need to do is put the value I want to pass there, pass it there and run this code. Pass that value there and run this code. Can you see the sum now?
Yeah.
Also, same thing goes for this one also. If I do take this product one, with this now we can easily build a simple calculator that does what? Sum, that does what? Multiplication, that does what? Addition, that does subtraction. Maybe we can use that to do our final project. Let's see how it's going to go. So now if I should run this now, if I should comment this out, this is going to compute what? The product, right? Because you're passing those values to product now. So if I should run this now, what is the error now? It said num1 not defined. Okay, yeah. So no, did I edit anything? Okay, so hold on. Let me comment this. So if I should run this, something is wrong with my VS Code. I can't find ways getting unexpected end of the input. Coming. So okay, so I need to comment this out again. Yeah. If I should run this again. Yeah, you can see the multiplication now. Something is wrong with my VS Code. You can see the multiplication now.
Yeah.
So all we just have to do is write the function was once, and we can reuse it over and over and over and over and over again. So, and you can see, but right now, another thing I need to explain. Remember when I was explaining how to write a function? I said it takes what? A return, where is it again? A return keyword. And for a function, to write a proper function or a standard function, we don't use console.log inside of a function. So we have to do what? Use a return keyword, which is going to tell us like this function should do what? Should return the output of performing that operation.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't know what is wrong with VS Code. Was it because of some of these things I did? I installed a couple of stuff on my VS Code lately. I'm suspecting maybe that's the reason why I'm getting all this crazy error. Like my return key is not working. That's the issue I was having the other time as well. I don't know why return is not working for me. So, but in essence is if we take this code and go to, let's go to you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
And you can see my Chrome, right?
Yeah.
So let's take this code now. I don't know why it is not working there. I only copy that same function. I put that function here. And now I'm going to copy this same variable. Those two variables I declare. I pass it here. Then last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to call that function. You can see I call that function. You can see it's coming out here. It's the same thing that is not working for me on VS Code.
I'm not seeing anything.
Can you see my Chrome?
No, I can't see it.
Okay, so let me stop sharing. Let me share again. Okay, it's on my desktop too. Let me add it. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
So you can see this is the same code I wrote on that VS Code. I put return there, right?
Yeah. Okay, it works on this.
Yeah, I think something is wrong with my VS Code. I don't know why. this is the same variable we declare, right? And I call that function.
Yeah.
And it works. So let me try something again. Let me just call these products. I'm just trying to try something. Something is wrong with my VS Code. I'm going to do let num. I'm not going to pass anything there. I want to see why that thing is not working. I'm going to go let num1 is equals to 3. I'm going to do let num2 equals to 5. And I'm going to do return num1 plus all times num2. So yeah, unexpected identifier. Okay, I didn't spell return right. Then I'm going to spell my return. Yeah. So now if I call this function now, yeah, you can see 15. And this is not working on VS Code the other time. Something is wrong with my VS Code.
Okay.
So
okay, the return.
sorry.
No, I mean the return.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's always good to use return when you're writing function and not console.log.
Okay.
Because, for example, now let's take a look at a case scenario now. Let's look at I think we've been using Airbnb, right? I think this is the end of the class anyway, and I thought maybe we have time and look at a very good example now, maybe a multiplication table. Let's look at this Airbnb, and this is our return. Most of you've been interacting with functions a lot of time. So anytime you perform an action, for example, if you let's say we want to register now, like I click this button now, if I want to sign up now, right? When you fill all this form, you do all these things, you click continue. There is a function attached to this continue button behind the wood. So anytime you click this continue button, that function is going to trigger and perform that operation, perform that action you're trying to do. So there are functions that attach to all these buttons behind the wood.
Okay.
So functions, it's more like one of the things you use a lot when it comes to programming. It's more or less like just trying to bundle something together so you can reuse it over and over and over again. So let's say no matter the numbers of people that comes to click this continue button, the only thing that's just going to get triggered is they attach a function to this continue button, and that is going to get triggered anytime someone clicks on it.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have any question. I thought we will have time to go through one example today again, but we can take that next class.
Okay.
Any question?